I'm here with, I'm reading Hope, a Tragedy by Shalom Auslander in Pardes Chana. And look at this. I found a way to load my phone. My battery went off. And on a tree, I'm actually loading my phone on a tree. I don't know if you could see it. So I'm kind of happy because happiness is actually when you think, when you complain about something, then you discover it could be worse. And now I realize it can be worse. So here I am. So far I haven't received anyone asking me if I need something like in a coffee shop. Like, do you want a cup of coffee? Which I would have liked, but they didn't ask. So I'm continuing. And now Kugel and his wife are discussing the fate of Anne Frank, who's living in the attic, whether it's better, whether dying is always more tragic than surviving. Kugel was discovering something about Brie, that's his wife, that he had never known, and it worried him. He wondered if this whole incident had revealed an unbridgeable gap between them. How could she think that dying was always more tragic than living? Kugel was a firm believer that death was not always a bad thing, that life often reached such levels of crapitude that dying was preferable to living. Maybe that was why Smiling Man was smiling. There was like a photo before that he saw of the Holocaust where there's a man and he's smiling. And he wondered, how can you smile when you're in the Holocaust, in a concentration camp? Maybe he realized it soon would be over. Maybe he wasn't happy. Maybe he was relieved. Maybe the rest of them, looking on in misery, was still holding on to the idea, Brie's idea, that any life is better than death, which, given their situation, was tremendously bad news. Maybe Smiling Man, emaciated, diseased, his loved ones murdered, his earth a hell, maybe he knew it was almost over, and maybe he was glad. Fuck all of you motherfuckers. Toodaloo. Surviving, said Kugel? She's been living like a rat in an attic after attic for the past 70 years. That's much more tragic than if she had been murdered. How can life be more tragic than death? Asked Brie. You can spend it in an attic, said Kugel. Do you really think, said Brie, her voice rising, that anyone would have read that fucking book if she had survived? Keep your voice down, snapped Kugel. He imagined Anne Frank upstairs, her ear to the vent, listening to them, listening to Brie, hearing those words that would cut her to the bone. Of course they would have, he said loudly, for Anne Frank's benefit. It was a terrific book, heartfelt and beautifully written. Because she died, said Brie. There was a dozen other books by survivors, a dozen. And nobody reads them. You know why? They're by survivors. People read Anne Frank because Anne Frank died. What's your point, Brie? My point is that death is more tragic than life, than any life. Because every life has hope, terrible, of some kind. Who the hell does this? People without any culture. How can they just... So obviously not just in Tel Aviv, but also in a quiet provincial people. Okay, so this is the end of this part. She's alive, Kugel, and she needs to go.